Hello. Pretty much every business in the country needs some help from its bank at some point, normally in the form of finance, whether it be at the start of setting up that company or expanding the company some years later. Well, we're here today to help you work out how to manage your relationship with the bank, how to make the most of it, and to help me answer those questions, I have 5 experts with me. Immediately to my left, Neil Mahoney. Neil is Regional Director of Commercial at Lloyds Banking Group. Next to Neil, Dennis Nocton from Santander. He deals with all things corporate. He's a divisional head. Rebecca McNeil is here with us from Barclays. She's Head of Debt and Risk-Based Products. And Peter Ibbotson is here from RBS, Chair of SME Businesses. And finally, Neil Treadaway from HSBC, International Relationship Director. Well, welcome to you all. We've got a lot of questions to get through. And obviously, really today, we're just trying to help people get the best out of their relationships with their bank. And also, particularly, it's something that people have been very worried about over the last few years. We all know that. Now, I'm going to come to you, Neil, for the first question. Obviously, one of the most frightening things that you can do is go to your bank and ask for a loan and ask for money. Most people think they'll probably get turned down. How can they make the best out of that application?
Well, I think the first thing is you say most people think they'll get turned down. One thing that we are all keen to do is to support SMEs. And so the first thing that any client should consider is that we are there to try and help support them with whatever they're going to apply for. Now, you know, in terms of how they can actually improve their chances, of course, the most important thing to do is make sure that you've researched your marketplace, that you're really clear of the customers that you're going to be doing business with and what terms, if there are costs in what you're looking to actually take on, that you're really clear of all of those and so on. So you do an awful lot of research in advance. But then once you come to us, if you can actually present a business plan which actually outlines all of the things that I've just talked about, as well as, you know, obviously the amounts, how that they plan to repay those funds over, you know, whether it's months or years and so on, the more that they can offer and the more that they can put it into a really clear business plan, the more that we can actually help them to actually shape that piece of borrowing into something that we can support.
And how do you decide whether to lend that money? Because a lot of people, whether it's an urban myth or not, say it was the computer that said no, it wasn't the human being.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, and it was the computer. We, of course, all the banks have a risk mechanism. So one of the first things is make sure, if you're an existing client of your bank, that you operate well within the facilities which you have and so on, because that will help with the actual risk metrics within how the bank looks at you. But equally, there is most definitely the human factor as well. And I would say around that, one of the canons of just lending is what we call 3C parts. It's an acronym standing for the character, the capability and the capital that the client is going to put into the proposition. Then parts is the purpose, the amount, the repayment, the terms, and also the security that they're offering. So 3C parts is a canon of lending that all banks have used for decades.
On that character bit, though, I suppose some people get terribly nervous. They'll get sort of sweaty palmed and they might feel that they look a bit shifty, and they might feel that will go against them.
And I think, yeah, I think that's human nature. But as I say, the more that they can in advance, go and get advice, research their marketplace, perhaps talk with their accountant if they've got one, come and see the bank in advance and say, I'm thinking about coming to apply to you. Can you give me some early advice with what I should go away and do first? The more of all of that preparation they can do, the more comfortable they should feel when they come and then actually meet with us to look at the actual proposition.
Dennis, we all know that no bank is going to give 100% of loans out, that some requests are going to be declined. But what's the most obvious or common reason for declining?
Well, as Neil said, it's in the bank's interest to try and support its customer base, whether it's a start-up or whether it's an existing business looking to expand. Unfortunately, there are instances where declines do occur. And the main reason is essentially its cash flow. It's the inability of the business to demonstrate that it can generate sufficient cash to service its debt. There's an old adage, turnover's vanity, profit's sanity, but cash is king. And it's essentially that cash flow that is essential to demonstrate that, one, that it's sustainable, and two, that if there's any knocks, that there's sufficient there to service the debt obligation.
so the advice might be almost perhaps go for the worst case scenario. But if I was going to the bank, I would think the bank will assume I'm being optimistic. So if I do go for the worst case scenario, they'll think the worst case scenario is even worse. So perhaps I should be a bit optimistic.
What's the realistic case based on what you believe is going to happen, and then look at what the risks risks do exist within the business, and in the event that any of those occur, what's the impact on cash? Can you still meet the debt obligation?
Presumably none of you would deny that banks are more demanding and less risk-taking now than they were pre-crisis.
We ask more questions now than we did 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And, you know, rightly so. We should ask more questions now.
And I think that's a great point because, you know, the economy is in a very different state to what it was 5 years ago. So actually we do have to look carefully in the interests of obviously our clients as well as us as a bank and our shareholders. But, you know, it's a different economic sort of world that we're in now, and we have to adapt to that. But we are still, as we're all saying, very keen to support businesses with a good plan.
Rebecca, you were going to come in.
I think it's just to say that we want to be more engaged with the businesses. It's very important for us to understand what your long-term plan is, not just your short-term plan, so that we can help you along that journey. So I think if we can make sure that we understand the business plan in the beginning, we can see exactly what that range of options is for you. This is the worst case, this is the best case. We can see you through that journey much more closely if we do ask more questions.